Campfire with AmeriCamp, the ultimate summer camp podcast. We have a really exciting episode this week. We have our CEO Dennis Wong with us. So, hi Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. How are you? How was your kind of trip over from the US?
It's been great, yes. Very lovely. I've been here a few times and it's just always fun to be back. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this is, as I say, a very exciting episode because not a lot of people are familiar with Intrax and their camp background and kind of how we've grown in the last year. So it would be great to kind of chat to you about a little bit of our history, and I think give our listeners and applicants a little bit more info on that kind of side of things. So I'm excited. Do you want to start with introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about Intrax for those that aren't kind of familiar with the company, and give us a bit of an insight into what you do?
Sure, yeah. So, yes, my name is Dennis Wong. I'm CEO of Intrax. I became CEO a year ago. Before that, actually, I was with the organization now for 4 years, working on different roles with marketing, growth, technology. I was very involved in the acquisition of AmeriCamp.
Yeah.
So it was one of the big projects that I'm proud of, and I'm very involved in. And a little bit about the history of Intrax too. So John and Take are the founders. Mm-hmm. They started the organization over 40 years ago. It first started actually as bringing groups of Japanese students to the U.S. in homestay programs, and ultimately that program became, which is now known as USA, which is our high school student exchange program. And so now we bring students from over 60 countries, I believe, to the U.S. and high school exchange programs. And over the years, we've, John and Taki were very entrepreneurial. Over the years, they've expanded more programs. We added an au pair program in the 80s. In the 90s, we added a work travel program. And then in the 2000s, we started an internship program. And it's continued to evolve over the years. We now have 9 different programs, and
Wow.
Really excited.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think it's such a globally diverse company, and it's obviously started from a kind of smaller culture exchange program, and they've really kind of grown everything out. So I think that's fantastic, and it allows everyone to have that kind of American dream sort of stereotypical experience of coming over for kind of various different things. So whether it's obviously high school exchange, work travel, au pairs, I think, are a really big thing that not a lot of people know about, and obviously you're kind of one of the leading programs in the US, which I think is great, and it's something that I think I wish that I had done when I was younger, because it was just not anything that the UK is super familiar with. It's something attainable to do, but you guys are kind of branching out with that sort of in the UK and Europe as well, so that's a fun opportunity for people that maybe that's something they want to do that they're not aware of as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Our au pair program is actually our largest program in terms of not necessarily in terms of number of participants, but in terms of because the students tend to come, the au pairs tend to come for a longer term, so it tends to be for 2 years, right? So it's a large program from that perspective in terms of the size of the program, and a really important part of, again, building community, because these families in the U.S. they're all across the country. So, and we have area directors all across the country. So we have staff, It really makes us, like you said, it's a global company. We're bringing all these international au pairs to the U.S., all across experience, all across the country.
Yeah. And I think it adds such a great cultural element. And obviously with the longer programs, they're assimilating it into families. They have, they're sort of living that, as you say, American life for the duration that they're there. So I think that's such an exciting opportunity that is available to people. So yeah, I think that's fantastic. Obviously, Intrax's kind of main focus is culture exchange, which I think is super up and coming, and I think it's fantastic that there are so many different programs available. Have you participated in a culture exchange program yourself before kind of coming into sort of business with Intrax and sort of building your career? Is that something that you've done before?
Yeah, travel is a very important part, I think, of any young person's journey, I believe.
Absolutely.
I was fortunate to have gone on a couple of programs to China.
Amazing.
One was to study Chinese, which
sounds so difficult.
very, very difficult, because I was born in America, and my parents originally from China, from Shanghai and northern China, and then ended up in Taiwan, and then came to the U.S. from Taiwan. So I wanted to kind of learn about my roots, right?
Yeah, of course.
For heritage, right? And so I did, yeah, two programs in China, and it was amazing, right? And one was a backpacking tour across the country too, so I got to see a lot of the country. Yeah,
That's so cool. I think it is like such a rich culture over there. Like I think it's such. I went to Thailand with one of our in traveler programs 3-4 years ago when they kind of first started, and I was in Thailand, and I thought it was such a culture shock when I first got there, because it's the whole other side of the world. Like the language is not something that you're able to sort of pick up as quickly. It's not something that you learn in school in kind of Europe and things like that. So I think it can be like quite intense sort of going sort of further afield for programs. But I think especially like my experience in Southeast Asia was amazing. So I think really like pushing yourself and sort of
getting out of your comfort zone
is like, yeah, I think that it's sort of made my confidence at the peak that it is, because I've sort of pushed myself out there. And I think that's something that culture exchange programs are fantastic for development and things like that. So that's great, and it's great that you kind of had that experience when you were younger, and then you've sort of brought that to your sort of business career and kind of furthered that with Intrax. So I think that's really interesting. I know that diversity and inclusivity is something that's very important to you and Intrax as a company. What do you have planned for AmeriCamp and Intrax kind of going forward, sort of within that kind of area?
That's a great question. I view diversity, equity, and inclusion as it's not a one thing you check off the box and kind of get it done. It's in a way it's a change in mindset, and it starts with us internally as an organization, our people, our staff. I think also we tend to think of diversity, equity, inclusion as maybe ethnic or race oftentimes, but you think about it, actually. Like think about gender, right? Like
absolutely,
we have 90% of our staff across the world is women, and so in many leadership positions. So I think it's a testament that many organizations are trying to diversify even in terms of gender and the equity gap, right? And so I think it's really important to encourage that, but also recognize that it's an ongoing evolution learning process. We are rolling out education and training for our staff just to be aware that there's certain biases that we all have, and being in exposed to a lot of cultures, and that there's that microaggressions that just we may not be aware of, but just it is good to be at least know that they exist, right?
So knowledge is powerful.
Yeah, it starts with learning in our own staff, and then through that we can further broaden and yeah.
Amazing. I think that's so interesting that you said that around kind of 90% of women in the company are in sort of leadership positions and things as well. I think that's really fantastic, and I think that's something that other companies should definitely like look to sort of aspire to. So I think that's fantastic. I love that.
And another way we're trying to encourage more inclusivity is to actually encourage our staff to actually interact with our other offices, our international offices, right? So we actually just rolled out this new thing called WorkX, which is a work exchange program where we want our staff to go visit our other offices.
Amazing.
And really integrate with our, European offices, our Asia offices, with our South American offices, and really experience what it feels like to be a part of other cultures and like physically too. So there's a lot of cultural change we can do within the organization as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's like a mini cultural exchange within the products that and the programs that we deliver. So I think it's great because genuineness is such a big part of AmeriCamp, and all of our programs for our team, we've all participated in them. We've all done AmeriCamp sort of before we worked for the brand. So I think that's super important for our participants to be able to kind of phone up and speak to us and kind of know a bit more firsthand about what to expect. So I think kind of rolling out that WorkX across Intrax and AmeriCamp and the other organisations within that is great. And I love how kind of progressive the company is. It's a great company to work for, guys. Would absolutely recommend. And Intrax do a lot of different programs, as we mentioned. I know that they had done like internships and things like that. We spoke about the internship program briefly when you were kind of mentioning the kind of programs overall. I know that previously they had done kind of selected like scholarships. Obviously, it's important to yourself as an individual and Intrax as a whole to kind of have equal opportunities. Is this something that you're looking to kind of scale in terms of making perhaps like a scholarship program or kind of something along the lines of more accessible placements just for not only AmeriCamp but your kind of other programs as well?
Yeah, this very much ties into the DE&I, trying to offer more opportunities. And we do this in a way through our existing programs because we're bringing cultures together, right?
Yeah.
As our a way for like soft diplomacy to bring, different cultures together and to change your mindset about, what it is like to interact with other cultures.
Of course.
And so one way to further push that is we're actually looking to set up a foundation. We want to create a foundation in a way where we can create opportunities for scholarships for students and teachers so they can apply to the program and experience cultural exchange, and people who may not be able to afford it or maybe not aware of this opportunity, and to try to broaden those opportunities. Yeah.
Amazing. Do you think that's something that we could look to do for AmeriCamp in the future? Do you think that's possible?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, why don't we chat a little bit more about AmeriCamp, the brand that we all know and love. Obviously, you were a kind of key part with the acquisition with AmeriCamp back in kind of the past year. Tell us a little bit about the kind of vision you had for the brand. Obviously, Intrax had Camp Care, which is your kind of camp program. So do you want to kind of chat us through a little bit about that?
We had actually just become a sponsor in the Camp Counselor program.
Amazing.
Right before COVID. in
Not ideal.
2019. Yeah, perfect timing, right? But it was actually a good thing because that what led us to AmeriCamp,
Yes.
right? And AmeriCamp already is such an amazing brand, and you guys are already doing such great work, and so this was just a natural fit. Like this was couldn't have been perfectly better timed, right? Just in terms of the opportunity for us to actually build a program off the AmeriCamp brand, and our vision is really to take the brand global, right? I think Lee and Nick really started something that was amazing and that people followed and loved and cherished, and so we would like to take that on a global stage and really build out the more countries that we can recruit from, as well as other products and features to really enhance the AmeriCamp brand.
Yeah, I can agree more. I think it's done nothing but positive things for us. Obviously, we had been around as more sort of recruiter, I guess, is the sort of easiest way to explain it. We'd worked with various different visa sponsors, and for those to kind of understand the process, I guess, a little bit more, is that as a brand, if you're not, as a kind of camp brand, if you're not a visa sponsor, you work with visa sponsors who kind of manage your camp relationships, I guess. So we have relationships but on a sort of different scale, but now the opportunity to be a sponsor is amazing because we've obviously been able to kind of work more with your US team. We have been able to onboard so many more camps and have different kind of camp types and different opportunities for our participants. So there's like so much that we can do and grow, and I think as a sponsor now we get to make a lot of those decisions as well. Thank you, past Dennis, for coming up with that idea. I think it's done wonders for us, and I think we're gonna have an amazing growth going into the next year. So I'm super excited about it. Yeah, obviously I've got a bit of a camp background. I'd done the program back in 2017, sort of during my university time, which I think is quite the sort of pattern for our participants. I know Marcy, the president of Intrax, has a personal connection to camp. Obviously, she had went as a camper and a counsellor, sort of the alum of the camp world, dare I say. Something fun that you have done sort of in the last kind of 5-6 years is your company campsite, which I looked into and I was like, this is great fun. Can we replicate this here? So do you want to tell us a little bit about that and sort of the idea behind it?
I've always been really infatuated with the concept of camp, right? If you think about camp, and I know camp means something maybe a little bit different in America than in the UK and other parts. But the idea is ultimately the same, right? It's there's a certain nostalgia where you're really disconnecting from like technology, from distractions, and
Yeah.
you're just really putting yourself in nature and around people, around community, and that part is the same. And so, yeah, the company that I co-founded, this was well before Intrax. We basically sought to bring the camp experience, but for adults and in the city, right? Because
Amazing.
people were, especially in tech and around Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
everyone's so connected and everyone's so like into their devices, and that I can notice there's a change in just people's behaviors and habits towards each other, right? And
Yeah.
so we actually created this camp themed co-working space to bring
Amazing.
people back together to actually talk to each other, to connect. And you walk into the space and there's like trailers,
I love
like these vintage trailers, and we had this huge mural of like redwoods. So like it
Yeah.
felt like you're in the middle of San Francisco, but it was we converted this parking lot into like what was almost like a campsite, which is the
Amazing.
name. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did that for a little while, and the idea was to grow to more locations, to have like these little parklets in
Yeah.
throughout the city. But yeah, the concept, I love the camp theme. Again, it's this nostalgia, the connect with nature. I would love to do the same with my kids as well, as they're getting older, and
Yeah.
sending off to camps as well. So
I think that's amazing. It's such like a fun imaginative idea, and obviously San Francisco is very like you have Google, it's like quite tech centered, so I'm just picturing these corporate men and women with briefcases sat around a campfire, which is a very fun vision. So I think that's great. But no, that's really fun. I think that would work here. I think
maybe we could
somewhere
bring it back,
maybe we
build our own
should.
AmeriCamp camp.
Absolutely. I think like Canary Wharf in London needs some sort of like bedazzling, so I feel like there's definitely some sort of room for something to work there. So as I was saying, summer camp is obviously such a huge part of American culture, and I think that's one of the great things that makes the US really special. And I think it's one of the things that kind of draws everyone, even as tourists, to kind of go and visit. It's definitely a culture that kind of stands out above sort of any other country in the world, which is amazing. You'd obviously mentioned you have young children. Do you think they'll be attending camp in the future? What kind of camps do you think would suit their interests? Is that something that you've thought about?
Our kids sign up for lots of camps actually. Yes, mostly day camps though. So they
Yeah.
do nature camps. My son did this biking camp where they would bike like 100 miles, like
Oh my
more
goodness.
more than I could ever probably handle. They would just bike all over the place, and lots of sports camps. My kids all play sports. My son plays baseball. My daughter plays soccer, or I guess
Football.
football, right? So yeah, this. But yeah, one thing actually that we are interested in, we talk to friends and things like that. That is uh, growing in popularity is obviously the overnight camps, and we're
Yeah.
not as familiar with it as I think in San Francisco. Maybe not as common, but I've heard a lot of friends actually sending their kids to other states where there are
Yeah.
maybe there are some camps even within our area that we could look into. And I don't know if you have, obviously you're the expert, so you
I'll do
probably
some
have.
searching for you. For you as a parent, it must be like I think it's an interesting perspective to speak on because we're used to talking as it going as a counselor, but obviously as a parent of children, like sending your kids away to camp for like 5 6 weeks out of the summer, that must be like quite a daunting experience that you must be that must be scary.
Yeah, I think it's like I mentioned earlier. I think it's good to challenge yourself, right? And in the same
Totally.
way, we want to share that to pass that kind of mentality down to our kids as well.
Absolutely.
And what safer way to do it than the camp where it's a controlled environment.
Yeah.
They're with other peers of their age, and you have amazing counselors.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I would absolutely do that for our kids too.
Great. So, Dennis, if you had the opportunity to work at camp as a counsellor when you were younger, would you have done it? And which job would you have? Obviously, there's loads of different sports, lots of different camp types. So, what do you think would have worked for you?
I would say maybe basketball.
Oh,
I loved basketball. Played basketball growing up, and Yeah, I think sports definitely. I always loved sports growing up, and played a little tennis, played a little volleyball. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
Probably one thing I could probably teach. I've coached my kids' teams. My son's little league team, and then my daughter's soccer team before.
Oh,
So
so you're more than qualified. You have
no,
like you
no,
have coaching
I would not
experience.
say
Years.
qualified. No, more like a babysitter in that case.
Amazing.
But
I think we should make this happen. I think we need like an adult camp and we can all kind of go and play basketball and sort of rejig those dreams of NBA. And obviously there's lots of different qualities that as a camp counselor are really important to bring to camp as like with your kind of co-counselors with your kids. And I think it's quite similar across sort of all international exchange programs. What kind of qualities do you think are important to kind of bring to these kind of programs?
I think it starts with the open mind, right? And obviously
Totally.
our participants, they're all, applying to the program to put themselves out there to travel, and so it really starts with that open mind. A sense of curiosity, I think, is really important. Like not just having preconceived notions about what it is, but being open minded and curious, and to actually be vulnerable. And I think that's the best way to learn is to know that you don't know everything, right?
Yeah.
And to really put yourself out there.
Absolutely. I think that's our participants' like biggest fear and biggest excitement is that the unknown of it. A lot of people in the UK or our participants in general have never been to the US before, so it's like this added layer of, oh, I'm going somewhere totally new. It's not just a vacation. I'm there. I'm like living there for this period of time. So I think that's great advice. I think the openness and just knowing that everyone is in the same situation as you and it is going to be daunting, but if you just kind of give it your all, you're going to get the most out of the experience. We always say you get out what you put in, and I think that's pretty kind of plain sailing across sort of everything in life, really. So
Right.
yeah, that's some great advice. Obviously with the J1 Bridge USA program, you've got 30 days travel at the end of your visa to kind of explore the US if you want to stay on after your kind of last camp day. Do you have any recommendations for must-sees in the US? Obviously you're California born and bred, so there must be some West Coast must-sees there as well.
San Francisco. Hey, of course, we're the company was started in San Francisco, and beautiful city. Obviously, is must see.
Bucket
Obviously,
list for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. Obviously, New York is
Yeah.
iconic in the movies and everything. So, but I think there's a whole the country is so big, right? And so there's a whole lot that you could really see, and it really depends on the individual, like what you're interested in. Like we have incredible national parks,
Yeah.
and there's also different regions where if you're really into music, there's like going to the like south,
Like
New
Nashville,
Orleans or
yeah.
Nashville, like where you just get really diverse music, right? And so I think again, it really depends on the interest of the participant. Disneyland is a
Yes.
popular. uh,
I feel like every state is known for something different as well. Something
yeah.
that I personally love to do whenever I'm in the US is I go to a baseball game.
Yeah.
I don't know how it sort of started. I went with my parents. Our first trip to the US was we went to Boston, which is my favorite US city, always kind of has been from that imprinted experience. So Boston Red Sox are my are
Good
my team of
team.
choice. But then I had the kind of privilege of going to San Francisco as part of my after camp kind of travel, and we saw a baseball game there. And I just think it's just a sport that can't really be replicated in the UK, and it's just so different. So that's my advice and recommendation is like I think a US sports game, but the seasons are obviously different. But I think that's something that I think is like a really cool, unique thing to do when you're out there as well. So why do you think people should do AmeriCamp? What is your advice for our participants going out this summer?
Well, obviously, AmeriCamp is the best camp counselor program, right?
Absolutely.
In
In the
going to
world.
the U.S., but not next going to the world exactly. Yeah, so um, I think the opportunity to work with kids, to travel the U.S. and it's a very affordable program too. I think it's that trifecta of just being affordable, but also open up doors that enable you to travel for a pretty a good few months. You can be
Yeah.
in the U.S., right? So I think it's an incredible opportunity.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Dennis, for being here. I've had fun. I've learned a lot, I think. And yeah, let us know what you want to hear next. We're always here to hear your recommendations. And yeah, tune in, share, tell your friends, have the best time at camp if you're already there or you're going in the next week. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye.